Hello, Dark Reader, and welcome to the Dark Side of the Library podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today we are going to be talking about Come Closer. This is by author Sara Gran, and this actually came out January 1st, I almost said 2023. It's 2003, so 11 years ago. I've seen this book quite a bit over on TikTok and some on Bookstagram. And it made me realize that I haven't read a ton of possession stories. Like ghost possession is one thing, but demonic possession, I don't think I've actually read many books. I can't even recall any that I've read recently, even within the past 3 years. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should. Just to be fully transparent here, I really enjoyed this book. I gave this a high 3, almost a 4, but one thing, too, is that I don't get scared very easily, and if you've watched/listened to this podcast, you probably know this, but for some reason, demonic possession is one of those particular horror genres for me that does freak me out. I don't know why, but it still has to be done well. It can't just be like, ooh, yay, we're getting possessed by a demon immediately. It has to be done in a way that's believable still, which is weird because I'm just still unsure about that as a reality, but I think you know what I'm talking about. I feel like Come Closer did a good job with that slow escalation to the peak of the story, and just it was I thought pretty well done. This book is only 106 pages, so even though I'm talking about a very slow atmosphere growing and getting spookier and spookier sort of deal, it's a page turner, actually. So it was just perfectly paced, in my opinion. I feel like it was one of those books that kind of got me out of a book rut. I feel like I've been in a bit of a book rut, to be perfectly honest here. So let me tell you what the summary is via Amazon. Then I will talk to you a little bit about who Sara Gran is, and then further my thoughts on this book. Here's what Amazon has written. She will never be lonely again. Amanda is happily married to Ed, works as an architect, and likes her life. But disturbances begin to upset her. Odd noises haunt their apartment. She suffers occasional blackouts, yet there's no medical explanation. She and her husband have petty squabbles. Ed seems less lovable. The image of a beautiful woman out of her past invades Amanda's dreams. Instead of a book she had ordered by mail, she receives another thing. It's called Demon Possession Past and Present. Soon after, Amanda accidentally burns her husband with a cigarette. Something just seemed to take over her. She begins to study the book on possession. Does everything that has happened to her have a rational explanation? Are these just coincidences that just happened? Or has she actually been possessed by a demon known to students of the Kabbalah named Nama, who is like the female all-evil demonic deity in Jewish mysticism? That is what the summary is about. So Sara Gran, and then we'll talk more about this book in a second. So Sara Gran is the author of 7 novels, including Come Closer and Dope. She's done a couple other ones. Claire DeWitt is a series of books that she's done, and it's won an award. We also have a recent book that she's published called The Book of Most Precious Substance, which was published in 2022. I'll have to check that out, and I'll make sure to put that in the description down below over on YouTube. Lots of her stories have gained some attention in the film and TV industry, but unfortunately it seems like none of them have come to fruition yet. It would be really cool if they did, and it sounds like Gran has written scripts for some other series. For instance, Southland, and another one called Chance, and Berlin Station. But her books, on the other hand, would be kind of fun to turn into a TV show, a mini-series, or even a movie. Come Closer, I think, would be one of those that would be like really creepy, personally. So let me talk to you more about my thoughts on this. So there are trigger warnings in this book. There's paranoia, there is sexual violation, severe child abuse, implied animal abuse. There's lots of body horror. There are quite a few trigger warnings in such a small book, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the story. Overall, positive experience. So I'm going to start with some of the negative things about this book. Some parts of the story, and honestly, I preferred the audiobook. I have heard, as far as like the book itself, she does repeat herself. I think with the tonal difference with the audiobook, it doesn't affect me as much, but I do notice that some of the writing is repetitive, which was a little distracting, and I think we could have gotten a little more creepy towards the end. I felt like it kind of got a little kooky. It felt a little cartoonish occasionally. So that's one of the things that I wish was more amplified, was that creep factor, that intensity, and the just, because there were, honestly, from the beginning, it started out really, really strong, and then it did have really awesome places where it was doing that, but then all of a sudden it felt like, oh, we've got cartoon demoness lady, ha ha ha, she's being evil. So that was just one of my flaws here. That's why it's not a 5 out of 5 for me. The pacing of the book was perfect for me, and like I said, it got me out of this reading slog that I've been in, and a lot of the time I am doing multiple things at once while I'm listening to my audiobook. So with this one, I felt fully engaged in the book, and while I was doing, whatever else I was doing for work or whatever. So first, before I talk more about my feelings in the book, I want to share a story with you. So when I was a teen, we lived in a pretty small condo apartment, and my room was on the very back end of the condo. My sister's room was right next to mine, and then my parents' room was across the hallway. Against my sister's room was the kitchen and dining room. Anyway, so I got up in the middle of the night. That happens a lot for me. And I walked down the hallway towards the dining room, and I noticed this tapping sound. And it has a rhythm to it. But I noticed the closer I get to the dining room, which was really... So we built a bar look-through from the hallway into the dining room. So it really wasn't a long hallway, like maybe 8 to 10 feet. So as I open the door from my room and start slowly approaching the dining room, I'm noticing the tapping gets faster and faster and faster. Originally, I thought it was the fan over the dining room table, but the fan was off. So it was like a tapping, like when you hear somebody tapping their fingers against a desk, but it was getting faster and faster and faster. So eventually, when I looked through the little peek hole through the bar at the living room, it was like super, super fast, and it freaked me out. I was like, nope. I went right back into my room, and I was like 18. I don't really scare that easily, like, especially with supernatural stuff. It's not really my thing, but for some reason, this just felt really off. There was something about it just was like too real for me, and I don't freak out that easily. So it was just like a very memorable experience. In this book, we start off talking just a broad brushstroke about Amanda and her husband, how they kind of met, what they're kind of like. They're pretty generic. Most of us can probably slip into either of their roles. Ed is type 1, very anal, and then Amanda she kind of lived in chaos, but she was still successful, and Ed kind of grounded her a lot more. But Amanda starts hearing this tapping noise. So immediately we're told the beginnings of possession. We have like a list of 10 things that if you experience like 1 through 4, you're probably fine. But if you have like between 5 to 10, you might be haunted or possessed. But definitely if you have 7 of the items to 10, you're probably possessed. Get some spiritual help. So anyway, learning about the tapping as like one of the beginning pieces of being possessed really freaked me out. So I was like, oh my God, am I possessed? Especially as we progress through the story. One of the interpretations that I really liked about this story, and maybe it's making me feel better because I'm like, I'm not possessed, is that it seems like Amanda, our protagonist, is kind of coming to where she's just tired of living this very basic, ordinary life. She wants to live the life that she wants to lead. So she ends up, it seems like she censors herself a lot, or is a person that used to, but then she starts getting angry at people or expressing anger. An example of that is somebody runs into a puddle as she's walking on the sidewalk, and she actually goes up to the car and is like, hello, can you apologize? And they're like, meh, 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 about it. So there's slow little things where she starts to become a little more aggressive. She stops really doing a lot of like the housework. Ed, her husband, likes things done in a particular way. She's the person who ends up usually cooking dinner and that kind of thing. But as the book progresses, she's like, I'm just going to hang out in bed. And she's just doing kind of what she wants, which is fun because really it doesn't seem like possession because she's just like, well, I'm going to do what I want. But the thing is, she's having these dreams about this woman who might have been Pansy, somebody she knew from somewhere, but it ends up being like this Jewish mystic demoness of everything, Nama, who is slowly putting her nails into Amanda. So there's a lot of relatable things about our character because she's pretty ordinary. And then there's a lot of times where, at least for me, I've experienced where I'm like, I'm tired of like, maintaining the status quo and censoring myself. And I am going to just, go off. I don't even care anymore. There have been phases like that. And then, of course, some of the other intrusive thoughts that Amanda has, it's like, oh no. So then I started like looking at the demonic possession numbers and I'm like, okay, how many of these do I have? Am I possessed? Anyway, I'm not possessed. I know that. So overall, I think this is pretty scary. Like, I thought this was pretty well done, except for some of the cartoony points. But there was something that I wanted to mention that I kind of wonder if you might agree or maybe have felt if you have read this book, is this feels kind of like a story about, and this might be really extreme, in a very, I don't know, I might be really grasping at straws here, but it does feel like an anti-misogyny book in some ways. Not in like a blatant way, but kind of in this strange, especially with possession as far as like a demon possessing your body, but it's like female reclaiming power in a very violent, gory, really twisted way. And again, I might be totally off base here. So like I said, Amanda is going through this process and she's kind of especially after being with Ed, it seems like she might have actually not been the way that she is with Ed, and now she's changing. So I'm not sure, because we don't get what previous Amanda was like. It seems like she's changing because she's tired. She's tired of her crappy boss. She's tired of these crappy guys, these crappy magazine salesmen. So it's interesting that it seems like a lot of the people that are bothering Amanda tend to be men in this story. That was something that I picked up on, and that they are trying to force her to be in a certain way, and she's just tired of it. Another reason why I'm wondering if that's the case is that Sara Gran could have picked any number of demons in all of Jewish mysticism, but she picked Nama, who is specifically, it seems like, again, I'm not a scholar on this particular topic, but it seems like Nama she is a seductress of men, but also seems to be the antithesis of what the Western world has wanted women to be. It's very anti-patriarchal for sure. And she is alongside Lilith in a lot of the stories, it seems like. So she in a way is like trying to shift the paradigm a lot of the time to her, to idolize Nama, which of course is very demonic in itself, but it's just interesting that our main character, who's kind of got this very plain Jane, like, yeah, she's content, but is she doing what she wants and following like her passions, or so it's interesting that they've connected Nama to this particular kind of character. And also it's interesting that it's possession. So, automatically for me, I think that means she's lost control. But in a way, is that actually what's happening? Is she kind of, maybe it's too much. So there's like a scale, of course, with this kind of thing. I would love to hear your thoughts on Come Closer by Sara Gran, and you can do that over on your favorite listening app or over here on YouTube. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and to comment. Thank you so much for listening to this minisode. It means a whole lot to us. We tend to publish every Wednesday and Friday and sometimes on Mondays, depending on how many books come out every single month. So stay tuned if you're looking for a new book. We do new book releases that are coming out every single week, and then sometimes I do minisodes and talk about the books I've been reading lately and break them down for you. You can follow us on our socials at Dark Side of the Library. We'd love to see you over there, where we present book covers and our thoughts even further and some other cool things that we might find. We do miss some books sometimes, so definitely give us a follow over there if you are interested in dark reads and starting a community. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you in the next podcast episode, and have a fantastic or creeptastic rest of your week.